The 1933 Nuremberg rally marked the beginning of fascist rule in Germany and the triumphant entrance of Adolf Hitler onto the world stage. Amongst the 200,000-strong crowd was a 19-year-old British aristocrat named Unity Valkyrie Mitford. This was the start of an extraordinary relationship between one of Winston Churchill's cousins and the Nazi dictator.
She was obsessed with meeting Hitler, so she really set out to stalk him.
She saw him, it seemed, more than 100 times. No other English person could have anything like that access to Hitler.
Both Unity Mitford and Adolf Hitler came to believe they were meant to be together.
Hitler was extremely superstitious, and he believed that Unity was sort of sent to him. It was destined.
Unity spent 5 years as part of Hitler's inner circle and was even rumoured to be his fiancée. But the question of just how intimate they became has remained shrouded in mystery for almost 70 years. Now, the release of secret wartime documents has prompted a fresh investigation, revealing new insights into the true nature of their relationship and new evidence connecting Hitler's girl to a discreet maternity home in an Oxfordshire village.
What was Unity Mitford doing in a maternity home?
Apparently the news of the moment should be the return of Unity Mitford. Folkestone was a battlefield where fixed bayonets were ready to keep the public away from the harbour, where for several days Lord Redesdale, waiting anxiously for his daughter, became the focusing point for reporters and cameras.
In January 1940, there was one story which dominated the headlines in wartime Britain.
Finally, the Channel steamer arrived, and then thanks to the breakdown of the first ambulance and the consequent delay, our cameraman was able to secure this picture of Miss Unity Mitford.
Unity was one of the famous Mitford sisters, eccentric aristocrats who became celebrities in the 1930s thanks to their literary talents and political connections. Unity was notorious for her association with Adolf Hitler. Her return from Nazi Germany in an ambulance was sensational news at home and abroad. Some reporters claimed she had been jilted by Hitler and taken an overdose. Others said she'd been shot by the Gestapo, or even by Hitler himself after a lover's tiff. The fact was that Unity had shot herself in the head on the day that war was declared, but had miraculously survived. She claimed not to remember anything, and her only comment was,
"I'm glad to be in England, even if I'm not on your side."
The press and the public called for her to be interned, but even though questions were asked in the House of Commons, Hitler's British girl spent the rest of the war as a free woman. The reason why has been the subject of speculation ever since. Martin Bright is political editor of the New Statesman magazine and has broken numerous stories as an investigative reporter for The Observer. He's begun a new inquiry into what happened when Unity Mitford returned to Britain.
The conventional story of Unity Mitford's life when she returns from Germany, having shot herself in the head, is that she lived out the rest of her days as a brain-damaged, incontinent invalid. I'm not convinced that's the whole story.
Martin's investigation began with the recently released diaries of Guy Liddell, the wartime chief of MI5. Liddell was responsible for vetting, interrogating and interning anyone suspected of Nazi sympathies, which should have included Unity Mitford.
Guy Liddell is convinced that Unity Mitford is someone of serious interest in the intelligence services. He's convinced that she should be interrogated. He's convinced that she should be interned.
Unity Mitford had been in close and intimate contact with the Fnhrer and his supporters for several years, and was an ardent and open supporter of the Nazi regime. She had remained behind after the outbreak of war, and her action came perilously close to high treason.
But Guy Liddell was overruled by the Home Secretary, Sir John Anderson.
Nobody was to be searched, and no order was to be served.
Here you have a woman who was at the heart of Hitler's inner circle, who is allowed to simply pass into normal life without being questioned or interrogated at all.
Her mother and father saw her safely in and accompanied her to their home at High Wycombe. Though reported to be wounded, Miss Mitford got home safely, Hitler having placed no obstacle in the way of her return.
The fact that Unity was not searched or interrogated means there is no public record of her medical condition when she first came home. A situation which has encouraged all kinds of speculation.
Unity Mitford's return to Britain is surrounded by rumour and mystery. We really do not know exactly what happened during those months after her return. There's even the suggestion that she may have been pregnant.
The rumours centre on a house in an Oxfordshire village, which was supposedly used as a maternity home during the war. After Martin wrote an article in The Observer describing his findings in the Liddell diaries, he was approached by a member of the public. Valerie Hann has a family connection to the house and a startling new claim.
So, Val, tell me what you know about Unity Mitford.
Well, I don't know an awful lot about Unity, except that I believe when she came back from Germany, she went straight to my aunt's house. And my aunt said to my mother that she had delivered Unity Mitford's baby, which was quite something in those days. I don't suppose my mother knew really whom Unity Mitford was, but it's been passed down through the family. All the family knew, and I was told, obviously, but I didn't understand it because I was very young.
And whose baby was it said that was?
Oh, Hitler. Hitler's baby.
Oh, that's quite something.
The relationship between Unity Mitford and Hitler has been the subject of rumours for almost 70 years. But how intimate were they really? Journalist Martin Bright is meeting Valerie Hann, who claims that Unity Mitford was pregnant when she returned to Britain in 1940.
So tell me about this family legend.
Well, the family legend involves my Aunt Betty, and her surname was Norton, Betty Norton. And she was a midwife in a tiny village in Oxfordshire called Wigington. And during that time, she attended the birth of Unity Mitford's child in Wigington at Hillview Cottage.
And whose child did she think this was?
Well, she told my mother that it was Hitler's child. I believe, and forgive me because I was only a young child, but I think my mother said it was a boy, but I'm not absolutely sure.
And what happened? Did she say what happened to the boy?
Well, it would have gone out to the wet nurses whom my aunt employed, and then it would have gone perhaps to foster parents, and then, I don't know. Nobody knows where this child is.
So why did you wait so long to come forward to tell the story? Were you told to keep it a secret?
Yes, I was. I was told that it was family secret.
Now, some people would say that this was completely preposterous, that this is a woman who shot herself in the head, she'd spent a lot of time in the care of doctors in Germany and in Britain.
Yes.
How could it possibly be the case that she then went on to have a baby?
I don't know. I'm just passing on the family legend.
Could Unity Mitford really have returned to Britain carrying Hitler's baby? What is certain is that Unity came to believe she was destined to be at Hitler's side, and their connection was established before she was even born. In 1913, Unity's parents, Lord and Lady Redesdale, visited Canada, prospecting for gold. It was here, in a small village called Swastika, that Unity was conceived. The symbol was adopted by the Nazi Party just as Unity was struggling to establish an identity in her large and eccentric family.
Unity found life in her big family very difficult because she came after these cleverer, prettier, more accomplished sisters.
By the time Unity was a teenager, her elder sister Nancy was already a famous novelist, while Diana was a celebrated beauty and society hostess. Jessica's talent for writing eventually made her a successful journalist, but Unity struggled to find a niche.
If you come from a ruck of children in a large family, you've got to do something to assert your individuality. And I think through the experience of trying to force her way forward among the sisters and in the family, she decided she was going to form a personality against everything.
700 miles away in Germany, Adolf Hitler was on the verge of taking power. News of his running battles with communists was filtering back to England in the press. Even teenagers in isolated Oxfordshire villages began taking sides in the new polarised politics of the era.
Unity and Jessica shared a room, which they divided down the middle with a chalk line. And one side was fascism and the other side was communism. And Jessica had all her hammers and sickles and her pictures of Lenin. And Unity had her swastikas and her pictures of Hitler. I think the desire to shock was very important. It was the way that she made herself special. When she discovered Nazism and discovered that it was a fantastic opportunity to shock everybody in England, she discovered the best tease of all. I mean, they were kids virtually. You don't know how much it was just a game that became deadly serious in later life.
In 1932, Unity's involvement with fascism was about to come much closer to home.
Fascism is new to Great Britain. Because it is new, it will be attacked by some and laughed at by others.
In the same year Unity was coming out as a debutante, Oswald Mosley launched the British Union of Fascists. Almost simultaneously, he began having an affair with Unity's sister, Diana.
I first met him at a dinner party in London, and we made friends rather quickly.
We live in a period when Britain can only survive by vigour and by action.
I was very taken with his ideas. I thought they sounded so sensible and wise. And in fact, as time went on, it turned out that they were.
Diana had only been married for 3 years when she scandalously divorced her husband to become Mosley's full-time mistress.
This was considered in the family so shocking that the younger girls, the younger three, of whom Unity was one, weren't allowed to see Diana or visit her, and certainly weren't allowed to meet the person that Lord Redesdale referred to as the man Mosley.
That summer, Unity disobeyed her parents. At a party thrown by Diana, she was introduced to Mosley for the first time.
When she saw Mosley, she at once called him the leader. The leader says, the leader does this, the leader does that, and the leader promised to give her a badge. And she was frightfully excited by this.
Unity became a very extrovert member of the party, which was her way. I mean, anything Unity took up, she sort of overdid it straight away. And one thing she did, so she joined my father's party, and she used to turn up. She used to go around in a black shirt uniform, and she used to turn up at communist meetings, and she used to do the fascist salute and heckle the speaker or something. That was the sort of person she was. I remember some conversations between my father and Diana in which my father was saying that Unity, although he was fond of Unity, admired